Hey folks. Hey, we've been on a little bit of a short summer break here, had some travel going on, but we're back, and today I've got a great episode lined up for you guys. So today's episode, I've got Eric Siron on, and today we're going to be talking about the AI doom narrative, right? I mean, you can't look anywhere online without seeing the negative side of AI, right? The job loss, the water usage, the power consumption, the anti-AI push from communities, and of course, corporations pushing back, right? Sometimes in not great ways. But yeah, there's this great big AI doom narrative out there. And it got me thinking, like, okay, what does the actual data say? Are things really as bad as they seem to be? And so after I dug through some data, I started making some notes and I said, you know what? This would be a great podcast episode. So again, I've got Eric Siron on today. We're going to be talking about the AI doom narrative and whether or not it matches up with the data that's out there. So I've got that and lots more in today's episode of SysAdmin Weekly. Hey everyone, it's a new week. That means it's time for another episode of SysAdmin Weekly. This is your podcast by sysadmins for sysadmins and dedicated to all the tireless tech folks out there working in the trenches day in and day out to keep our digital world spinning. As always, I'm your host, Andy Surwich, and I've got my good friend with me again. I've got Eric Siron today. How's it going, Eric?
I'm doing well, Andy. How are you? I choked on it, but I am well.
That's good. That's good. I'm glad you're doing well. All good. All good. You know, if I had a penny for every intro I had messed up or, something along those lines, well, I probably wouldn't need to have a day job. So I'll be the first one to make fun of myself for, choking on my intro. So I once did that during a webinar where there were like 400 people on the line and I just rolled with it, So anyway, good to have you, my friend. As always, we've got a good talk lined up today, so should be a good one. And that talk, of course, is, I guess we're continuing a little bit. It's a little bit related to my solo episode I did last week on Claude Code, but we're going to focus more specifically on the general AI topic today. And there's very much been a doom and gloom narrative out in the industry with AI. Some of it is warranted. Don't get me wrong. Very much some of it is warranted. But it got me thinking, about the actual data. What does the actual data say about things like the job conversation, the heating and cooling of data centers, the power usage of data centers, things like that? Really got me thinking about the actual data. And surprise, or maybe not surprise, a lot of the data does not line up with some of the doom and gloom, right? Again, some of the doom and gloom is warranted, and we're going to get into that, but a lot of it is not. And so I think what's important for me here, before we really dive into this episode, is the fact that this is not a AI cheerleading episode, but it's, it's not like an everybody panic, we're all going to die type of episode either, right? So yeah, we're going to be somewhere in that middle, hopefully grounded in data by the time we're all done. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we get to that part, let's do all of our usual recurring segments here that we do on the show. So I'm going to start by getting my show plugs out of the way. So if you're new to the show, welcome. Hope you enjoy your time here. If you want a list of all the various links associated with the show, you can find that out at www.sysadminweekly.com. That'll get you links to YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple Podcasts. It also has a link to our GitHub discussions community where, we've got some conversations going. We post summaries of the episodes and the associated newsletters. Speaking of the newsletter, we also have a companion newsletter that you can find at newsletter.sysadminweekly.com. And Eric, I'm gonna put something on you that you have to remind me about. I have some comments we need to cover today. Don't let me forget. And I say that because at the beginning of last week's episode, I said, hey, I've got a backlog of comments that we're going to get through today. guess what? By the end of the episode, I'm like, oh no, I did not cover those comments that we were supposed to get through. So I got a couple that we need to cover here today. So with that, speaking of comments, I love interacting with our community. If you have a comment you want to share on the show, you can leave comments on the YouTube and the Spotify versions of the show. And if you want to get straight into our inboxes, you can email us at contact@sysadminweekly.com as well. So with that, our first recurring segment that we get to here is our News React segment. So this is the segment of the show where my co-host and I, we pick a news item a tech news item, I guess I should specify that, a tech news item that stood out to us in the last couple of weeks. And Eric, I'm going to let you roll first with this one. What do you got for your News React item this week?
Well, Elon Musk sued OpenAI.
I remember hearing about this.
I can't even follow all the different points of the lawsuit. He lost. They have just decided he lost. And I'm going to, you and I have talked about this before, and I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out on the air, that like watching Elon Musk and Sam Altman in a fight, I feel about the same way as two drug dealers standing in front of me trying to kill each other. Like, there are not going to be any, I don't care. I'm not getting involved. You know what?
Oh boy.
I'm not going to take a side. I'm just going to sit and watch it because I just have no love for either of these guys or either one of their companies. I will say, though, the interesting part, a component of the lawsuit was that they pointed out Sam Altman set up OpenAI as not just Sam Altman, but everybody together in the founding of OpenAI set it up as a nonprofit.
Right.
And then once they heard a certain point, they converted it into for-profit. And so they were saying, like, this was always a for-profit thing. You just rode the back of the open this, open that, making it sound like you were somebody else to draw this attention in. And you always intended to do this. And like, ooh, okay, I'm curious how that goes, because I agree. I don't think there was, I've watched a few things about Sam Altman, and this guy's a professional grifter. This is what he does. He runs companies up, values them, then he bails when he thinks it's not going to work anymore. And so I think Elon's got a point on that. Where they got him, where they were decided against him was so they said he waited too long and the statute of limitations expired. That's what they got him on. Like, oh, well, that doesn't actually say that they didn't do the things that he's accusing them of doing. It's just saying he waited too long.
Right.
So, well, that's interesting. So now we don't actually know how the courts feel about what OpenAI has done.
So we're kicking the can down the road again.
Yes. They're just going to have to find somebody else. And there's a concept in law where in order to bring a case against somebody, you have to have standing. You have to be able to show that you personally or whoever's doing the filing has a good reason to do it. Otherwise, you automatically lose for lack of standing, basically. So if Elon doesn't have it, it'll have to be somebody else. So it's going to be interesting to see if somebody, I don't think anybody else is going to take him on. Whatever I might think about them, they have a lot of money and not a lot of friends. So
right. And Eric, I agree with you, but just to make the lawyers happy, everything that we say on the show, of course, is just our opinion, right?
Yeah.
For the record.
It's a fact that I don't like them, but
there you go. See, there you
know
go.
what? You can't get in trouble for not liking somebody.
Right. Exactly. So, yeah, I've seen the headlines for that, and part of me has had a to-do item on my list here to go and read the whole saga, but there's enough drama in the news media. I don't know if I want to go read more drama. Especially since GPT has largely been removed from my workflow these days. Everything's Claude for me these days, but anyway. Well, my News React segment is also AI related, but more from the standpoint of the open source community. And everybody knows that Linux was created by Linus Torvalds, right? And so when Linus speaks, it carries weight, right? And so anytime I see Linus's name in a headline, I always, my ears always perk up and I read. And so The Verge has an article here from May 18th. And Linus Torvalds says Linux security list is becoming, quote, unmanageable due to AI bug reports. And so let me expand here. So where was he quoted here? He's quoted as saying, the documentation may be a bit less blunt than I am. So to make it real clear, if you found a bug using AI tools, the chances are somebody else found it too, unquote. He called the duplicate bug reports, quote, entirely pointless churn, stating, another quote by him here, we're making it clear that AI detected bugs are pretty much by definition not secret, and treating them on some private list is a waste of time for everybody involved and only makes that duplication worse because the reporters can't even see the others' reports. AI tools are great, but only if they actually help rather than cause unnecessary pain and pointless make-believe work. Feel free to use them, but use them in a way that is productive and makes for a better experience. And so, the reason why I chose this particular news item was that last block quote. I'm going to say it one more time because this exemplifies my stance on AI perfectly. Again, to quote Linus Torvalds, AI tools are great, but only if they actually help rather than cause unnecessary pain and pointless make-believe work. Feel free to use them, but use them in a way that is productive and makes for a better experience. So you and I have talked about this exact thing, Eric, where AI, when it's used in a aimless, I don't know what I want it to do type of fashion, it's not that great, right? But you give it a specific job and it can really shine when configured and really dialed in for that specific task, right? So I thought that one was interesting. So along with the news that the security mailing lists are becoming difficult for them to manage because of duplicates and the number of bugs. And I mean, it's also interesting that it's on the heels of now four very recent Linux kernel 0 days. So 3 that have been heavily talked about in the news. There's a 4th one that's starting to make its way through the security mailing list right now too. So I know the first 3, I talked about them on last week's episode. They're all local vulnerabilities. So the attacker has to have local access. Again, reminder, just because it's not remote code execution doesn't mean it's not important. You still need to patch. So, but I don't know what this 4th one is. I don't know if it's still local execution or not, but that remains to be seen. Anyway, that's my news react item for the episode today. And with that, let's get to our next recurring segment here. That is our Nerd Hour segment. This is the segment of the show where my co-host and I talk about the geeky, nerdy things that we've been doing in our spare time. And Eric, what do you got? What have you been doing in your Nerd Hour time lately?
I think we collectively dunk on web browsers frequently. And I had just this sort of, doesn't matter how I got there though, but I have decided to start using the Samsung browser on my Windows PC.
The
And
Samsung browser.
Yes, it is available for Windows PC, and I like it so far.
Interesting.
I haven't run it a lot. One thing is like it's nice to open up Task Manager and not have your browser at the top for memory usage. That's new.
Right.
It seems unscientific, seems faster to load pages and certainly uses less memory. It's still Chromium based, so I can load all my plugins. I don't know what the word is. Everybody has to have a new word for plugin, but plugin.
Right.
And one, I'm gonna chalk this up as a positive. It's got an ad blocker and some other things in there, and like couldn't log into Facebook. Like it kept going through log in. Here, okay, here's my login information. Like, okay, do this 85-page caption. I hate captchas. Got all the way through it and it went back to the login. Maybe I messed up. So I did it. And then it's like, no, we want you to go to the captcha again. I'm like, I'm going to blame this on the browser. And cool. Thank you for keeping me out off of Facebook, Samsung. I appreciate that. And a couple of other things I've run into, but always on sites like that, that are, you just, I don't trust them to begin with. and Samsung, whatever's going on in here is like, it's not letting me log in. So I'm like, okay, you know what I'm going to do is I'll keep Chrome installed. And when I want to go do something that I don't trust, I'll just run it in Chrome because I don't trust Chrome either. So there we go. But, and then I can close it and then it'll, my memory will go back from full compose, I ought to just stay off the Facebook and everything will be fine.
It's a feature. The Facebook
Feature,
blocker.
the Facebook blocker.
Oh man. Yeah,
However, I wanted to do it for this, which we do in a web browser. You know that, Andy. I don't know if any of the listeners do, but this program doesn't work, and it comes up and says unsupported browser. So it's not made me sad.
Got it.
But that's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
Speaking of browsers, did you see the recent news regarding Microsoft Edge
What about the passwords?
being stored in the clear?
Yeah, I did see that. I was like, I didn't want to read it. I'm like, I'm hoping I'm going to find out. Well, yes, they're in clear, but they're also in like a walled off. Because they use a lot of Hyper-V technologies and that stuff, including Edge. And I'm like, oh, hopefully they're putting it in some sort of walled garden. And somebody said, well, you can use a CLI to get them out. Like, okay. So I don't actually know what the splash radius is of having them in clear text like that. So
yeah, neither do I.
You're going to tell us, aren't you? Oh, no, you didn't know.
I wish I had. So I haven't really dug into it a whole lot yet. I think I'm going to save that for our next episode. But from what I've heard, it doesn't sound like it's all that difficult to retrieve them. Again, that's what I've heard.
Sure it's not, but I don't think it's all that difficult to get the passwords out of any of them. What I wanted to know is the clear text itself the problem?
Right.
Is it, and like the threat to me would be, well, I see the Edge is running, so I blue screen your machine and I suck the
memory out,
the memory dump, and then I get your passwords. If I can do that, that would be the place where, no, that's not okay. Don't do that. But if it turns out it's setting in like a Hyper-V container so that memory's not encrypted within the space of Edge, but is encrypted from any other process, that means if it were dumped in memory, it would still come out as encrypted.
Yeah.
I would be less upset. I just don't really know, but they backed off on it, so I guess I don't care either.
Yeah, I got to look into it, but that's on top of the recent BitLocker vulnerability too. That BitLocker could be defeated too. So it's not been a good couple of weeks for Microsoft security here, unfortunately.
No, it sure hasn't.
Anyway, well, my Nerd Hour segment has a lot to do with Cloud Code and Forgejo. And as people know, I set up my own software forge inside of my lab here, and I have pretty much moved all of my GitHub related functions to my local software forge now. And I've got Restic backups both locally and to the cloud. So it's fully backed up. And those projects out on GitHub that need to be publicly accessible, I have a local repository that I work here with my Forgejo setup that just mirrors the repo out to GitHub. So that's all the stuff I've been working on lately. Git and Git related stuff, I guess. So I don't know as if I need to get nerdier than that, but I know it's probably not all that interesting, but that's the Nerd Hour stuff I've been doing lately is cleaning up all my own software repositories and things like that. So anyway, what do you think, Eric? Should we talk AI and doom and gloom?
Let's roll with it.
Thereof. Doom and gloom.
Roll with it.
All right. So, again, as a reminder on today's episode, we are talking about the pervasive AI doom and gloom mentality, I guess, that's taken over. And don't get me wrong, a lot of the doom is warranted, right? But I've always kind of been of the wait and see mentality with a lot of the AI stuff, because I've seen multiple major tech revolutions come and go in my time in the industry, right? So, I mean, I've seen mobile happen. I've seen the cloud thing happen. I've seen, I was a little young when the internet age happened, right? I remember I was just getting into tech when like the whole internet thing was going on, but I saw that. And, I kind of had the gut feeling that, like, I feel like net new jobs had always been created with a lot of these tech revolutions, right? And so I started actually digging into the data. And so what we're going to do today is we'll talk about, the AI doom and gloom. What of it is warranted? What is not? What does the actual data say? The other big conversational point I've seen around the use of AI a lot lately is the impact of data centers, right? Mainly when it comes to cooling as well as power usage. So I have some strong opinions on that, what I think data center operators should do, right? We're going to get to that and pretty much everything in between. I also have some really interesting statistics to share from the World Economic Forum about the job impact and some of their conclusions as to where they see this going in the next couple of years as well too. So should be some good coverage here of a lot of stuff that we've been talking about here and there in the industry. So what do you think, Eric? Should we dive right in?
Yes, let's go.
So when we talk about the doom narrative, I feel like that's the pervasive thing that you see in all the general news headlines, right? And I mean, I understand why. I'm sure it garners clicks. I don't know how many, but I'm sure it's a lot. The whole AI is taking all the jobs, and there's a lot of fear there. And again, don't get me wrong. There are some cases where it has been documented that, yes, X number of people got laid off because their jobs were replaced by AI agents. But in a lot of cases, and I'm going to put a bunch of different sources in the show notes so you guys can take a look. There's been several cases now where I think you and I talked about it on a recent episode briefly, Eric, where, and a whole team was laid off to be replaced with AI. And then, actually, no, wait, come back. Because they realized that, they couldn't replace that institutional knowledge for whatever reason. And so I think because of the very fear-inducing, the inflammatory nature of that type of headline when it comes to AI, I think that's a big part of why the doom narrative really took over the headlines, right? It's, yeah, and I want to be sure I'm clear here. I mentioned it at the start of the episode, but I want to mention it here too at the start of this particular segment, right? With this particular episode, we're not setting out to be AI cheerleaders, but we're not on the side of, everybody panic either, right? Really, I see what I've lined up in the outline for today as it's just our practitioner read on whether the dominant fear stories that are out there hold up against actual data, right? That's really what my goal of this particular section is. And so I think the other way I look at this is I just spent the last episode talking about how I've started integrating Claude Code into some of my own workflows, how it's helped me. Like the one use case that has kind of stuck out even to some of my peers in my day job is I've mentioned Restic several times on the show, how I'm using that to back up, the data on a bunch of my Linux boxes inside of my lab. Restic is a very manual process to set up. It supports encryption from end to end, but it does that using, secure key infrastructure, right? And so there's a lot of PGP stuff you have to do. And if you want to transfer stuff over SFTP and things like that, there's a lot of steps to get set up in order to use it. And so after I got it set up on the first box, I mean, I'd gone through, I don't know, 50, 60 different commands, right? And when I got done, I'm like, what did I even do? Right? Like, it's working. Cool. What did I do to get here? And so what I did is I'm like, you know what? I run the history command. I output, like the last 100 lines of my history to a file, went through, I sanitized the output of that command to make sure that there weren't any secrets or anything like that contained in the commands, right? Because like I said, I was dealing with keys and things of that nature. And then I fed it into Claude and I said, hey, tell me what I did here. Like I know where I ended up, right? But during the process, there was a lot of back and forth. Oh, wait, that command didn't work. So let me do this instead. Oh, wait, the syntax here is wrong. You know how it is when you're figuring out something for the first time. There's a lot of, back and forth as you work through various configurations and things like that. What it produced for me was immensely useful. It's like, oh, okay, it looks like you did all of these things. You did this command because this one didn't work. It basically gave me in a documentation form exactly the steps I took to get a new client machine set up and working with Restic with my repositories from start to finish. I mean, that documentation process, I could have gone back and done it myself, but I had it done in, I don't know, like 4 minutes or something like that, as opposed to probably the hour it would have taken me to go back and look through all the steps I took and hopefully not, forget that, oh yeah, that particular command, I ended up not using it because of A, B, and C, right? And so, I think that was one of the big use cases that has really stuck out to me, is that it actually provided real tangible value. Because like I said earlier in the show, Eric, you and I have talked about this, when AI is given a very specific job, it usually does pretty well at it. And I think in this case, it really helped. And so I think there's a lot of sysadmins that are kind of in that same boat. They've started to see some value with AI in their own workflows, and there's a lot of folks that I've seen where the doom and gloom narrative, well, I think I get the feeling a lot of people are like me in that some of the doom and gloom is warranted, but a lot of it is overinflated as well too. And so that's another reason why I wanted to do this particular episode. And so where I thought we'd start here is kind of the jobs aspect, Eric, but I don't know if there's anything you want to add to what I've said so far.
Well, I was excited about the proposal for this particular episode. I literally was going to use a News React item on AI doom and gloom narrative, and I moved it out because I'm if you want to talk about this now, I want to address the doom and gloom, and I'm going to get in a place where we're going to have to cite that these are our opinions, and that's it.
Yep, let's go for it.
Because I'm kind of sick of this narrative. So I'm currently on livemint.com. The headline says Microsoft AI chief Mustafa Suleyman has a grim warning for every office worker. And within 18 months, and it goes on basically within 18 months, AI will basically, I want to try to not take him out of context, but basically accountants, lawyers, and marketers better watch out. 18 months or so, you're gone. You're vulnerable for sure. Whether you're actually gone or not, I don't know, 18 months. And so, as I have complained about in the past, most of the executives making these complaints, like, what have they ever done in their life? Has he ever been let's go back to, has he ever been an accountant, a lawyer, or a marketer? So I looked him up. So as a child, he went to a private school. And I know where I tend to immediately feel when I find out somebody went to private school as a kid. But what we can take from this, he didn't have a job. He then went to Oxford in England. So clearly an intelligent person, but also didn't have a job. But while I can't tell how it kind of lines out. He did start up a telephone counseling service called the Muslim Youth Helpline. This is from Wikipedia if you want to check me on this. That sounds cool. Like basically talking people out of committing suicide, which, hey, I'm all for that. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is not on this list of jobs. He says we're going to be eliminated. Okay. So it doesn't count for this discussion. It does count. It doesn't count for this discussion.
Right.
Then he went to be a policy officer on human rights for Ken Livingstone, the mayor of London. That sounds cool, but I don't know what a policy officer is. So again, because I want to stay on track here, prospects.ac.uk says that a policy officer undertakes research and gathers objective evidence to support the policy-making process or to influence policy decisions. So it is a data syncretizing position. AI could do that, but policy officer wasn't on his list of people he said are going to lose his job. So again, for this conversation, it's irrelevant. After that, he's like, I want to go be a tech bro. And he has never had a job since. He's just been tech bro, tech bro, tech bro, tech bro, tech bro jobs ever since. He has never been accountant, lawyer, or marketer. He's just been
Right.
tech bro. That's what he's done. So what I found interesting, and I wanted to kind of mention it in line because I'm going to take a shot at him later, that he dropped out of Oxford. Like, why would you do that? That is so self-destructive. Like, you got into Oxford, millions of people wish they could do that. You got in, and like, I'm just going to quit. So but my opinion, he quit either because they asked him to cite his sources and he didn't want to do that, or he dropped out before he learned how to cite sources, so he doesn't know how to do that. I'm going to come back to that because I'm just kind of sick of this whole narrative. So, out of these things, I've never been a marketer or accountant, any of these positions either. So, I'm not an expert. However, I am married to a lawyer, and I precisely did not ask her about this exact comment because I don't want her getting involved. But we talked about AI a bunch, and one thing that she will tell you is that the law and AI have had a horrible relationship.
Right.
A lot of lawyers are getting in a lot of trouble for their use of AI because they're wrong. The AI is so far off base, it has no idea what it's talking about. It has no understanding of jurisdiction or jurisprudence or anything else. And like we have all found out using AI gets it right about 90% of the time. If you know any lawyers, and I've known lawyers for decades, they will tell you a lot of the work that they do lives in that little 10% anyway.
Right. Those details are
Right?
important.
Those details are way super important. The AI screws that up on a regular basis. It is horrific at law. And not just, and he might be, well, I didn't mean to stand in a courtroom and litigate. Cool. That's still a problem.
Yeah.
And something that had been brought up to me is like, there's a chance. Let's say you put together your case using AI. Let's say it even gets everything right as an argument. Then you go in, the judge can say, you owe your client or the other, so whatever, you owe them due diligence of you putting in the work, and you did not do that. You failed at your basic job as a lawyer, case dismissed, whatever. Possibility. Also a possibility is like, if that's a thing, well, what happens when the defense says, well, the prosecution just put everything together with AI. They didn't actually look at it with their own eyes. So how can we trust anything they say? And I don't know if it's going to work or not. Not a lawyer, not a judge. May work in some places, not others, so on and so forth, because that's how the law goes. And the idea that AI is going to figure this out, bad. So I'm reading this. Like, first of all, one of the things in academia is if you are not a recognized expert on something and you decide to talk about it in a factual sense, you must cite your sources. You
Right.
must do that.
Yeah.
And even if you are a recognized expert, there are a lot of times where you have to cite yourself or you
Right.
have committed plagiarism, basically.
Yep.
So there's a lot going on here. So I'll say, I'm not really comfortable saying he's an expert on AI. He's been a tech bro in AI for a while, but it's always been at the putting things together stuff. I don't see a whole lot in here that says he actually did it, but let's just say he is, sake of argument, this man is a recognized expert on AI. He's not a recognized expert on any of these other professions at all. So not only did he not cite his sources, apparently he didn't even do basic research to find out, well, yeah, law is probably not going to be one of the first jobs that AI really does anything to. And the reason I kind of got sick of it is we already have people, because of the mass layoffs, people are already committing suicide, killing themselves because of the job situation. Now
Yeah.
he's out here saying in 18 months, you're done.
Yeah.
Without any research, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's an executive of a major corporation. This is irresponsible.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure he's not the first one to say almost
He's
exactly
not.
that.
He's not. And funny
Yep.
thing is that if you slide the windows around between the last time I think I read the 18 months and now, it's like, what are you just pushing your 18 months out in the future because you're not hitting your own targets? Is that's what's
Yep.
happening here? So
Yep.
I don't know what they're doing. I would like to go back to the days when executives weren't trying to be influencers all the time, because what they probably need to understand is if somebody decides, hey, my kid read this, he put, it takes a long time to get a law degree, pass the bar, do all those things.
Yep.
My kid did all those, walked out. Now Microsoft is, and they will say it. Microsoft said that his job is going to be gone in 18 months. My kid killed himself. They decide to sue Microsoft. This man is an executive. They can do that.
Yeah.
Will it work? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, not gonna be in the room, not gonna have anything to do with it. But this is irresponsible because he doesn't know
Yeah.
what he's talking about. He didn't cite his sources, he didn't pull up anything, he didn't show any excuse to do this other than, "I want you
Yeah.
to click on this." So but if they'd had, like, a random person, like, I can't remember, they have other positions of people who are the public face of things, who are not executives. It's harder to sue a company when a non-executive is running their mouth.
Right. Right.
But when you're an executive, that changes the game. So I'd really like to see us go back to when executives just were executives and they weren't trying to be this influencer thing all the time,
They just did
especially with
their
this kind of stuff.
they just did their job, and
Yep,
you didn't really
yep,
hear about them. And yeah.
yep. But
Y-
what I want people to take away from that entire rant is that you're going to see this, check him. See,
Yep.
does he have any reason to know what he's talking about? Because this man does not.
Yep. And so when I saw that statement, I actually had an old work colleague of mine reach out to me and was kind of alarmed, like, wait, what do you think about this? And I was like, 18 months? Really? And I did the same thing then that I did prepping for this episode. I went out and started looking at data. I'm like, that's not what the data from, major, major job and workforce publications say. I'm like, I don't think 18 months is a thing. And I always look at this stuff from, I always talk about how I work in the security industry, right? And I am in a technical role, but I'm marketing adjacent in my role as well too. So I spend just as much time talking to marketing folks in my day-to-day as I do tech folks. And so I very much see AI from a marketing perspective as well too. And when I hear that 18-month thing, one of the first things I think about is like, boy, really pushing that marketing campaign there, Or the other one that comes to mind, and I've been singing the praises of Claude and Anthropic's praise the last couple of episodes here. There's a little bit of that thing going on with Claude Mythos as well too. So Mythos is Anthropic's more cybersecurity focused model that organizations I think it was Mozilla used it to surface 271 bugs or something along those lines. I talked about it in the last episode, or the episode before that. I don't remember. Anyway, I remember before people even started using Mythos, there was talk in the news of Anthropic saying, whoa, hey, Mythos, way too good. It's way too good. It's so powerful, we cannot allow you to use it. Like this, to me, these things are very similar. Now, to your point, and I agree, the whole 18-month thing that's a very irresponsible statement. Anthropics, it's a little different because there's not a direct job correlation there, right? But it's from a marketing and PR perspective, which is probably the angle he was looking at this from. It's very similar in that, whoa, hey, our AI is so powerful and amazing that it's going to displace all these jobs, right?
Mhm.
Go take a look at it. Maybe it can help you in your organization, right? So I think that type of stuff has definitely helped push the doom and gloom narrative as well too. And this is my opinion on this. So I'm with you. I think it's wildly irresponsible. I think to build on that, again, looking at this from a marketing perspective, I think that type of stance is going to have diminishing returns for the companies that do those types of things long term. Because it's not a good look for them, in my
It's
opinion.
not. And let's say you don't care about anything. You don't care about anything I just said. If I said, "Oh, okay, this executive of Microsoft says AI is going to take over everything, and I'm a big AI guy, so I'm going to dump a bunch of investment into Microsoft now," and then 18 months later, if I don't have my return on it because it didn't happen,
Yep.
I'm going, well, bye. I mean, I just it's gone on so much. It feels like they think they can just say whatever they want. Nobody's ever going to call them on it. And or if they are, they're going to be people like me on a relatively unknown podcast and not that many people listen to, and it won't matter. But at some point, they're going to do something. They're going to hit somebody, and it's going to matter. And you can't do this forever.
Yeah. And I think
You
a
can't
lot
do
of
this
these
forever.
I think a lot of these companies, they're so far in. They are so far into the AI thing that they can't fail now. They've put so much money, so much
Yeah.
effort, so much time. And I think that's driving some of these types of public statements as well, too. Hence, continuing to perpetuate that doom narrative.
Yep.
They are building, inadvertently, they're building the narrative that is actually bad for them, because in the last couple of months, I've seen probably a larger anti-AI general public sentiment than I have ever
Yes.
since AI came out.
Yes. Absolutely.
And so I
Because
think statements like that is not helping their case in any way, shape, or form.
no, it's I
So
can't see anything good coming from this, and I didn't watch the whole thing, and I don't want to, honestly. I've read enough of the summaries of it that I feel no interest in it. But the question becomes, what was the point of giving this little speech? What was your
yeah,
end game? What did you think you were going to get out of it? Have you had anybody jump up and down and go, "I like this. This is great. This is wonderful news"? Who's done that?
I'm kind of
Especially, and
surprised.
like I had a little LinkedIn thing. Is like, do you understand, sir, that if you destroy all white collar jobs, you destroy Microsoft because your entire business model is selling products used by white collar people? I mean, Jude. Or
Yeah,
the Xbox, I guess, but okay, but none of us have jobs, so we're not gonna be buying Xboxes.
we're not buying
So you
Xboxes.
still killed Microsoft. It's like, dude, self-preservation ought to kick in at some point,
Which
if nothing else.
which sidebar did you hear? They're rebranding Xbox from Xbox with a capital X, BOX, to an Xbox in all caps. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
Solving the big problems, man. And I bet it took them 18 months asking AI before it finally said, you should just.
That was Copilot's recommendation. Here I am bagging on Copilot. That's not the point of this episode. Anyway, but let's pick at the jobs thing a little bit more here. I think that's a nice segue into the jobs conversation, because that's often the big thing that's brought up in the news again and again. X number of jobs lost due to AI, and I keep seeing that narrative again and again and again and again. And this has been going on for a couple of years now. We've been seeing layoffs in tech since 2013, 2023. I lost 10 years there somewhere. 2023 is when we started seeing layoffs in tech. And if you actually dig into the data here, and everybody will remember when they end up reading what I read, you remember that thing that happened in 2020, 2021, 2022, COVID, right? We were all stuck at home. Remote work was exploding. Companies like Zoom were, exceeding valuation that they ever dreamed of, right? Because of remote work. And tech companies were hiring left, right, and center for this, that, and every other role, because they had to handle the demand of everybody working from home, right? And so fast forward to 2023, we find out, and I've got some articles that support this, right? We find out that, whoa, hey, some of these tech companies overshot headcount by like 30% because of that. And once everybody went back to normal work, surprise, a lot of that demand was not there anymore. To me, that's simple supply-demand economics. That's all it is.
Correct.
And a lot of those early layoffs starting in 2023, a lot of the businesses were rightly saying that, hey, I think IBM was the big one quoted. Yeah, we overhired. Oops, And okay, if that's the answer, to me, I'd rather that be the answer than AI or because of AI. If you overhired, that's fine. But of course, they get punished at the the stock market for saying we overhired. I don't know. I'm not getting into that side.
I would like to find some data on that too, because it's more like it's up to kind of the analyst to keep an eye on that and say you're overvalued because you're whatever. It's not really the company's place to come back and do that as a stock, because at that point they're saying we are now reducing headcount because we overhired, and then people, oh, okay, so you're right sizing. Basically, it's literally what right sizing was always supposed to be. Oh, you overhired. Now you're right sizing, and for most part, when you say we are now right sizing, your investors like that. I mean, the people you're laying off hate it. for good reason.
For good
The
reason.
investors
Yep.
typically are like, okay, yeah, yeah, that's fine, that's fine. So I'm curious, I think a lot of it is at one time there was stigma around mass layoffs that people would look at your company and, you know,
You must not be doing well, you know?
well, no,
Which
it's
a lot of
mostly that
companies that's
you're just evil. Like if you're this big, if you're IBM, for instance, huge, why can't you find a place for these folks that generates revenue? That's on you. You're mismanaging your company. You brought those people on, and you probably fed them the whole "we're all family here" narrative, and now you're just kicking them to the curb, which family doesn't do. Stuff like that. There used to be a stigma against mass layoffs, is what I'm getting at, and that has
right.
disappeared as where we're at in the world. We've kind of shifted from making customers happy to making investors happy, and they have a
Right.
whole different.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. And looking at some of the sources that I put together here, IBM was listed as the one, as saying, yeah, we overhired. But a lot of organizations, after a lot of those initial 2023 layoffs, started shifting their narrative to the AI side of things and not. It's weird. The narrative's changed a little bit, but the ultimate reason for the layoffs is AI. And so a lot of organizations, it's come out now that AI was kind of the nice, puffy, PR friendly way to do layoffs because, hey, here's this AI thing that everybody hates. These are the reasons for layoffs. But, and this is where it gets interesting, insidious. I don't know. It depends on how you look at it. By also saying that because of our AI efforts, we have to lay people off, I'm also signaling to my investors that we're an AI centric company. Therefore, stock price go up, right? Because companies are being rewarded for integrating AI into their systems, platforms, and processes. So there's that angle of it as well, too. And so, yeah, I mean, so when we talk about the AI thing and the layoffs, a lot of the early layoffs were due to overhiring during COVID, which that's well documented. But more recently now, a lot of these same layoffs, either AI is the excuse for continuing to lay off and reduce headcount, or what I've seen happen more recently now is, I don't know exactly how I want to word it. I'm an organization that I want to increase my use of generative AI. I need dollars to do that, right? I have to feed the AI engine. Well, I'm going to reduce headcount so I have more capital with which to put coins in the AI machine, right? I've seen
Yes.
some companies saying that that's the reason they're reducing headcount as well, too. I think Cisco was one of them. I think they were nebulous about it, like, our AI efforts or something about that. And Cisco, that happened just a week or two ago, and they were knocked really hard, rightly so, in the tech press because they laid off 4,000 people after realizing immense profits in the last quarter, right? Which is not a great look. And it feels like a lot of these organizations are starting to use AI as the get out of jail free card with my investors when it comes to layoffs, right? But like you said,
Yep.
Eric, a lot of times investors they're okay with layoffs, but I don't know.
Yes, I will. There's a huge amount of risk they're taking even by saying that because yes, investors will tolerate layoffs. They will do that. What they
Yeah,
will not tolerate is being lied to. They will
right,
not tolerate taking unnecessary risks. They will not tolerate anything that means. So it's basically a case of overvaluation when they come out and
right,
say, "All right, your stock is trading at $500, but you're not pulling in that sort of value."
right.
Then if you're out here saying, "Well, we're going to do all this stuff to get more money to put on AI and eliminate headcount so that we can afford it," that sounds good in the short term. If that AI isn't producing in a very short amount of time, the investors are going to bail. So you're screwing this up. You're doing it wrong.
Yep.
And the other side of that, so your investors are leaving, and because AI hasn't delivered, and now you need to hire people. So now you have to go. Let me tell you something that's expensive is hiring people.
Yup. And training,
Okay,
getting them up to date with
well
all the
let's
institutional
just say
knowledge.
onboarding people. Let's start from somebody decides we got to get a human to do this to the end of the onboarding process. That is extremely expensive. That whole thing is extremely
Yep.
expensive. And if you had somebody and you got rid of them and you spent all that money on AI tokens, you didn't, that money's gone. Now you've lost money. Okay.
Yep.
And investors are going to go, you lost my money. We're gone. And you know how long it takes to rebuild that kind of trust?
Right.
Like you think you can get the customers mad at you and bye. Well, you wait till the investors are mad at you.
You see some
Like you
stuff
lied
start to
to us. We're
move at that
done.
point, you know?
Yeah. So this is an extremely risky thing for these companies to do. And again, I don't think it's responsible in any way, shape, or form. Not quite to the level of, hey, sorry. Well, let's not rehash that. It's not a good plan. It's really super risky.
Yeah. And so I think we've covered the layoff angle fairly well here so far. The other next thing I want to mention, I mentioned it earlier too, so I won't spend a ton of time on it. If you go back and you look, and again, I've got a couple of sources I'll include in the show notes about this. If you look at every major tech wave that historically has happened, the PC, internet, cloud, mobile, ultimately, at the end of the day, when all the dust was settled, they all created more jobs than they eliminated. The problem is, and the article I've got from the World Economic Forum highlights this, there is a very sucky transition period there, right? Where people are losing jobs, and before those newly created brand new positions, because of whatever new technology, before those positions are ready to be filled, there's that transition period. And I think we're right in the middle of that transition period right now. And that's why it feels as bad as it is. But you look at AI, how many new types of jobs have been created, prompt engineering, AI process automation. I had a whole list. I don't know where I have it in my outline, but yeah. So, I mean, there is a vocal group of people saying, well, this time's different. Well, if you look at every major tech revolution that's happened going back way when, historically, again, assuming AI follows the same trajectory, which it's looking like it is right now, we will have a net gain in jobs by the time all this is said and done. So, for example, here, where do I have it here? The World Economic Forum Jobs Report. Again, I'll put a link to this in the show notes. And again, this is where I come back to the data, the actual data, in contrast with the doom and gloom. So the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report puts the math at 170 million net new roles created against 92 million displaced by 2030. So that's a net positive of 78 million. Again, not downplaying the 92 million displaced jobs. That's terrible. That's a lot of pain and churn there. And rightly so in their report. Like I said, they do go on to talk about there is a transition period that's very, very painful, very unevenly distributed, and they go out to call out that it's a policy and a workforce problem. You know, they cited retraining needs to happen, education needs to happen. This last thing they called out, I kind of laughed at because I live here in the US. Social safety nets was the third item on their list. And we're not a political podcast. I'm not going to get into that. But I can pretty factually say here, right? I guess it's an opinion, but I think most people would agree with me. I don't think the current administration is all that interested in retraining, education, or social safety nets. Just saying. Right?
I think that's a fair assessment.
And so I will say that it's kind of the perfect storm, right, to make this transitionatory period worse than it probably needs to be. And I think that's another thing that's contributing to that doom and gloom, right? It's like, okay, we know there's this transition period. We know that training is needed to fill some of these new jobs that AI is creating, these new job positions, but there's not a big push by the powers that be to help with those things. And I haven't seen a ton in the private industry helping with that myself either. Granted, I haven't looked at that particular side of it as part of my research for this particular episode. I'm going to have to go look at that now because I'm curious. But it's kind of the perfect storm for making this transition period worse, in my opinion, right? And so, again, I'll put the link to the World Economic Forum articles in the show notes. They are a very interesting read. And again, a lot of the doom and gloom is warranted, but the data supports a net positive outcome by 2030, according to the data right now, right? And there's no sign of the AI tech trend being different than the internet or PCs or mobile, right? Or any of the other big tech revolutions. It's following the same trajectory right now.
Cloud is supposed to take my job.
Yep.
I don't even know. I've given up.
I remember that.
To take my job.
I remember all of us sysadmins and infrastructure engineers, we were all supposed to be out of a job because everything was going to be running the cloud on PaaS and SaaS. And, well, I'm thinking of Morpheus in the second Matrix movie, staring out at Zion. We're still here, So, anyway, that movie's been on my mind a lot lately for some reason. Anyway.
Okay.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about as part of today's episode, because it's related, right? I think it goes along with the angst and the doom and gloom that goes along with AI, and that's energy and water when it comes to AI data centers. So there's this big push to build data centers because we need compute. We need computing power. I think it was the CEO of NVIDIA. I saw a quote today. I don't remember which news outlet. He basically said, we need 1,000 times more power than we have today for all the compute needs we have, which, okay. So the energy and the water discussion around data centers has rightly so a lot of conversation happening. I've had people come and ask me, family members, what about water usage in data centers? It's a big deal. And my response is kind of like, And I'll tell you why. Because first, I will admit the water usage as it is today is a problem. It's a problem. So a lot of data centers use highly wasteful water cooling today. That said, this is an engineering problem, and the industry is already taking steps to solve it. So there are now closed loop cooling systems. There's new cooling systems that the big players have developed that are essentially water cooling right over the chips themselves, not relying on forced air cooling in conjunction with a water cooling system. This water issue is being worked on and solved. It's an engineering problem with a trajectory that's already defined. The solution's already there. We just got to do it. Now, updating existing systems, time-consuming, difficult. Yes, it takes time. My one issue with the water thing, I just got done saying, yes, it is a problem today. And all the big players are rush. Let's get all this stuff set up and going right now. I think what I would have liked to see, and snowball's chance in hell of that happening, what I would have liked to see is, hey, let's solve the water thing first, and then we'll scale up. Why waste needless amounts of water when we have the solution, we have the technology to do this right? Let's put the correct water cooling, the correct water solution in place first, and then scale up. But innovation. Right. And then the power issue. I want to state my stance very clearly here right at the start. I don't have a problem with data centers, but they should pay for their own power. Don't come into a municipality, piggyback off of their power, make everybody's rates go up. If you want to come put a data center in my municipality, that's fine. I have no issues with that. You should pay for your own power, though. I mean, come on. Because ultimately, you're going to pass that cost on to your customers. That's the way it should work. That's capitalism, right? And so I started looking at the power angle of this conversation as well, too, because how do you deal with that growing power demand? And so all of the big players are not waiting right? So there's I've been seeing a lot of doom and gloom about the power angle of AI and data centers in the news lately as well, too. And the big players are already taking steps to address that themselves, ultimately paying for the power themselves. Now, I think in the short term, I'm not sure that's going to be the case. And it would not surprise me to see some of them try to be subsidized by communities that their data centers are in. Hopefully, we as a society will hold them to account and ultimately make them pay their own power. But time will tell on that. But the facts here, the data here shows that the big players are not waiting. Microsoft has a deal, I believe finalized, don't quote me on that, to restart one of the nuclear reactors at 3 Mile Island. So there's that. Google has a signed deal with Kairos Power for SMRs, which I hope I'm remembering this correctly, small modular reactors. So they're small nuclear reactors that get directly attached to the data center, right? So you don't have all that intermediary power infrastructure between the power plant and the data center. It's like the reactor's right there, right? Let's see, Amazon committed to X Energy. I don't remember what X Energy is off the top of my head, but they have a deal with an energy organization that they're partnering with to power their data centers. And then I started going down the solar and wind rabbit hole because, like, we've been talking about Microsoft over the years, Eric, how they had that net carbon negative policy that they had for the longest time. Part of that was using renewable energy. Well, I guess come to find out, all of them are at least subsidizing their power usage with solar and wind farms in some way, shape, or form. So
I read something that said that Microsoft has backed that off. Like, you can no longer find any references to that promise.
well,
They've
correct, yes.
deleted all of it.
In regards to the carbon neutral promise, yes, they have removed all references to that. Absolutely, yes. But according to my research, they are starting to address some of their own power concerns. So I don't think that carbon neutral promise will ever come back. Maybe someday. But I guess
Maybe when they find out AI is not going to do everything they thought it was going to do, maybe like,
maybe. In short, I guess I am happy to see that all of them are starting to take steps to start handling their own power needs. Now, I have mixed feelings on the whole nuclear power thing. Amazing source of energy, if it can be done safely. Us humans have proven that is problematic at times. Sometimes we don't always do things safely. But that's more of a me thing. And I have not looked at the data on that, nor do I pretend to be a nuclear power expert, on TV or anything either. So I can't comment on that, but that's just one of my own personal, I'm kind of okay with nuclear power as long as you do it right, So anyway, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Eric. I kind of went on a rant and a ramble there for a bit.
I cannot complain about anyone who goes on a rant ever. I've lost any right to ever do that. But there is a bit to unpack. So the one thing I want to start with is the water thing. I know that I have read many, many, many doom and gloom things before AI saying that we are, at least in the United States, using up our water. Other places in the world have used up their water. And then if you get out into the doom and gloom, they're like, the water wars are coming. Make sure you know where you get your water from and how much longer you have with that water. So when the AI people come in, like, we're going to take what's there, if that was really a thing, they just hit the gas on it. So
right.
I don't know I'm kind of where you are. I don't really, it's always hard to separate where does the fact end, where did the, so on and so, I don't really know. Like, obviously, as a planet, we have more water than we can use. It's the clean water that we don't
Right.
have a lot of, and it's difficult to clean it, so on and so forth. And so that's the water part. What little I know about it could be a big deal. Power. A lot of these places, I know people. I used to live in Memphis. I have friends and family who live in northern Mississippi. Memphis sits right on the corner of Tennessee. It's in Tennessee, it sits at the corner of Arkansas and Mississippi.
Yep.
And so I know people in northern Mississippi right there. And they can hear those generators that were set up to run those, was it XAI? I don't remember who did that. Who was that down there? Somebody set up a huge data center
Yeah.
and they're using generators to power it. And it's, it's just horrifically, it's this insanely loud
A lot of
and
noise
obnoxious
pollution.
and polluting, and it's just horrible.
Yeah.
And so, so when you say solving their own problem, what do you mean by that?
That's a good point. That's a very
And
good
then,
point.
and I saw a headline just the other day too, was like there are communities now who are voting, we do not want your AI data centers here, and then they're being overridden by the powers that be, and they're
Yep.
getting the data centers anyway, and it's going on all over the United States.
Yep. I've seen that
And
too. I do not agree with that either myself.
yeah, it's
You
there's
don't
a lot
override the
going
will of the
on.
people.
No, that would be, sometimes I don't agree with where the will of the people go, but you have to say it's the will of the people, and this
Yep.
country's supposed to follow that.
Yeah.
There's and I will throw out there, there is always the concern of what they call the tyranny of the majority, where the majority of people can be wrong and push it on the minorities, and that's not fair. I don't think this is one of those times. I think
Right.
this is
Right.
money talks, and then the people who should be saying, this is my livelihood you're messing with here, don't do that. They're just being rough shot, just run right on over.
Yeah.
So again, time will tell how that's all going to play out. And the final point was on the nuclear stuff. Again, I'm one of those people, like, you always have to be careful anytime you criticize nuclear. Somebody says, well, you don't believe you're anti-science. Like, the science I'm fine with.
Right.
It's
Exactly. Same.
the implementation of the science that's always a thing. And every time somebody's like, "Oh, nuclear is perfectly safe. It has nothing wrong." I'm like, write his name down, because that person just volunteered to store the nuclear waste for us all. Thank you.
See, that's
Thank
my
you for
thing.
putting your name on the
Yeah.
list. Yeah, if it's perfectly safe, you said it, man. So you shouldn't have a problem with us doing that. And if you push back, like, you said it was perfectly safe. Those were your words. I didn't say that. Uh, my real concern though is, and I will say, I did bring this up around people who are in the energy sector, and they made me feel a little better. So like I brought up, like, something that happens in places like New York. So when you're going to build a building, you there's all permitting, and there's all these things you have to work with the city when you're going to construct something, especially if it's really big, like a skyscraper, right? And part of that process is you come in and go, these are the materials that we're going to use. And then the city, whoever's involved with it, looks over it and they decide, yes, that's good.
No.
It has happened that they bring in one set of material for the inspection, and then they use a cheaper one in the construction. That has happened
Yeah.
because everybody's out to make a buck, and that's one way to do it. Well, what happens if they start doing that with our nuclear reactors? So then the science is irrelevant at that point. What the science says, if you use shoddy materials, you're going to have another Chernobyl, and that was not great.
No expense should be
Right?
spared when it
No
comes to
expense should be
nuclear.
when it comes to nuclear. Do it right. And then you're talking about these SMRs, and also where I actually get concerned is this race to build them as quickly as we can. That's where the corner cutting is going to come in, and it only takes one mistake. With something
Yep.
like nuclear, that one is all it takes, and
Yep.
you've got millions of people dead, hundreds of millions of people at risk.
Yep.
So, like, again, I'm not anti-science. I trust the science. I don't know how much I trust corporations to follow the science. When you were saying before, it's like, why aren't they doing the water thing and getting this right first? And let me tell you why, because there's the precept of all capitalism is that money now is better than money later. So if I have to
True.
wait for my money, I'm not going to do that,
Yeah,
right?
that's the
And they're not going
mentality.
to. Yeah, that's why they're doing it, and it causes so many problems.
Yeah.
Oh, just
Yep.
people they would tell you, like, in your work, we're paying you, take a beat, do it right, and then you're like, okay, let's do this, and they're like, well, that'll cost money, so maybe let's not. So why did you ask me?
Yeah. Yeah, you explain the stance on nuclear. We have the same stance on nuclear. I'm exactly the same way. You just worded it much better than mine. It's not nuclear I don't trust. It's the humans running nuclear I don't trust. Yup. Agreed. Because they all cut corners when given the chance, and yeah, and all the things. Well, I'm looking at my last bullet point here, what we've actually done with AI as practitioners. We could spend another 10 or 15 minutes on this particular point, but I feel like I gave a lot of mine in last week's episode. So I will say, if you want some actual in the trenches, hard case use cases for use of AI as a sysadmin, go take a look at last week's episode. Eric, I want to give you the chance to sound off on this. I don't know if you have any, tangible real world cases that practitioners can use with AI before we sign off here.
I'm still in the small adopter, so I do use AI. I use it quite frequently, but usually for small things like polishing the edges of things that I'm working on, whether it's scripting or I ran into this problem. Can you take a look at it? Um, I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. We've also run into a couple places where following a prompt, like, all right, well, that gave us a hint. We go this, and then we wind up on these wild goose chases and come back to like none of that worked out. So
Right.
I'm really mixed, but I'm still not to the level that you're at, where you're using it in a very intelligent and well thought out way. I started on your episode. I have not finished it yet. I want to, so I will throw in my vote there. Go out and watch that. Uh, AI usage correctly will be a benefit. And I'm not anti AI by any stretch of the imagination. I think it can be great. It's not going to take my job. I'm going to take your job. I'm not going to take jobs. It
Yep.
is going to help us hopefully get things done. But we have so much work to do in general that even with AI helping us, we're not going to get it done.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
um, I need the doom and gloom narrative to kind of turn itself down a
Yeah.
lot. So um, I,
So
that's my
that's,
big thing. I'm not anti-AI. I hate performative things. That's the thing that'll make me madder quicker than anything is
yep.
people just being
Agreed.
performative. And I don't like people speaking completely out of turn irresponsibly.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we all wildly speculate. If you and this is not my idea. My wife kind of stuck it in my head, but I love it. Where the biggest problem with social media is that now everybody's expected to have an opinion on everything on the drop of a hat, just instantly.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on that? And you're expected to have an opinion on it, and it's harder. It's gotten harder, I think, for people to just go. I just don't know, and I think that's where a lot of this nonsense is coming from with a lot of these headlines and these executives getting up here and running their mouths and just don't.
I have said this for
I don't know how
years.
to make it simpler.
Yeah, I've said this for years, and I think I got it from my dad originally. Say I don't know is a perfectly acceptable answer. Perfectly acceptable
Yeah,
answer. Those are some of
yes,
the
yes.
strongest words you will ever say, especially in the sysadmin trenches. I will respect a sysadmin that says I don't know 10 times more than somebody that tries to bullshit their way through something.
So you had the positive reinforcement. I'm going to give the negative side of it. I grew up in Missouri. I'm a Missouri boy, which means that we are pretty much have our teeth cut on Mark Twain for like our forever.
Right.
His stance on this: it is better to keep your mouth closed and appear a fool than to open your mouth and remove all doubt.
That works too. I prefer the
Or,
positive one, but yours is
well,
good too.
the shorter one. I guess this probably came out later. Somebody shortened that to a closed mouth gathers no feet.
That accurate. Accurate. Oh, anyway. Well, Eric, I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with us today. It's always good having you on the show, my friend.
You can't leave. You owe us some comments.
I am so happy. I'm so happy I told you to remind me, because I forgot again. Man, I am just I'm not doing great on the whole comment thing lately. My apologies, folks. I get so into the show's topic that I absolutely forget. And so let's do this. I want to go out to, I feel like I had a YouTube comment. Actually, I think you and I covered this particular comment already. So, and just in case we didn't, I'm on the fence whether we covered this one or not. So I did another solo episode back on episode 33 on why IT job postings are completely broken. I don't know if you remember that particular episode, Eric. Basically, I went through a bunch of tech job postings on Indeed, if I remember correctly, and just went through them posting by posting. And some of them were okay, don't get me wrong, but some others, they were asking for like 4 different people in a single job posting, you know. And this commenter made a good point, right? I'm going to quote the poster here, right? You're describing the job listings for most of the jobs I've had. Small business IT is hiring for generalists, not specialists that had the luxury of going deep on a very narrow field. I agree with that statement, right? When you're a small business, you don't have the luxury of going super deep on any one thing. You have to be that jack of all trades sysadmin, right? I've been that jack of all trades sysadmin before. The problem I have with the current job posting mentality is that, how do I want to say it? Employers are looking for unicorns and they don't want to pay for unicorns, if that makes sense. That's the problem I have with it. They want you to have, 10 years of experience of X and 6 years of experience in Y. And meanwhile, the expertise that you would have in either of those 2 areas that, if I've been doing a specific thing, I don't know, SQL for 10 years, I am a SQL expert, right? And I would expect to be compensated appropriately for that, right?
But are you? Because I can say I've been doing SQL for way longer than that, and I absolutely will not say I'm an expert.
Right. Same.
So,
Same.
And then I go in there and I apply for the job and say, well, you said you had this experience. And I said, I do. You weren't clear on what you wanted that experience to look like.
And that's the other thing I called out as part of that episode is like, okay, you say you want these things, but what does that mean? Exactly. What do you mean by 365 experience? Is that Purview? Is that the Office apps? Is that Entra? Like, what does that mean? And that was the other side of it, right? Is they put these blanket large-scale general requirements across the job description, and now you've immediately reduced the number of resumes you get by 70% because, how many people on the planet actually check all of those check boxes and, can live off of that particular salary? Because some of these salaries that were offered as some of the job postings I went over some of them were insulting. Right? Some of them were downright insulting. Really? And so that was my
simple thing. It's not even new. There's a simple way to deal with this is you have a requirement section and then you have a
would be nice to have,
would be put you up ranks. I mean, there's a million ways to put it, but like you must have these. You must not be a felon. You must not. These are the things. If you don't have these, don't even bother. And then, because you'll get the candidates because people are going to apply. Oh, I'm close enough. I'm going to try it out and see what I get.
Yep.
So just let me know what I must have. And that's, continue. Please.
But to the commenter, fair call out. Absolutely fair call out on that one. Because yes, like I said, I've been that generalist sysadmin before, but I think it's just a little different now than it was back when I held one of those jobs, just because I feel like job posters are taking more advantage of IT folks than they used to, right? And I think that's what's different in my mind. So anyway. And the other comment I wanted to make sure I got to here, this was a comment that was left on Spotify, assuming the comments area of Spotify loads for me. There we go. Oh no, upstream connect error or disconnect reset before headers. Uh-oh. Hold on. No, server error. The server encountered a temporary error. Spotify doesn't seem to be okay right now, at least the creators dashboard. That's not great. Okay, I can go at least.
That'll be great. They said AI is going to take care of it. They said.
I can go off of memory on this one at least. Let me just try really quick here. Just going back to the creators. Okay, yeah, that's having issues. I can go off of memory on this one. So this was a commenter who was either on our Hyper-V management episode or on our Hyper-V in 2026 episode. I don't remember exactly which one. The commenter was talking about SCVMM, in that, again, I'm going on memory here, so I really hope I'm getting the commenter's comment right. But I seem to remember them say, it's kind of meh, kind of okay on feeling about SCVMM, System Center Virtual Machine Manager, but did call out that for some third-party tools, it is a requirement, right? So I think he called out Veeam as one of them. There's some hooks in Veeam that require SCVMM, and a couple of other third-party tools that actually require VMM inside of your environment. And I was thinking about
Citrix
that.
PBS is one of them.
Yep, exactly. And I was thinking about that. And this is my stance, right? I dislike SCVMM so much that if it was my choice, right, and I had the ability to phase out any third-party app that requires SCVMM, I would, right? If my backup application required VMM, I wouldn't be using that backup application. That's just me, because I don't like the bloat that comes with VMM. And I've not had such a large scale Hyper-V environment that when I say that, I'm talking hundreds and hundreds of hosts and multiple clusters, right? I mean, there are very few cases where I would actually run VMM these days, and I would go out of my way to not have to use it because I don't like it that much. And that's just me. And you and I have talked about VMM over enough beers and coffees over the years, Eric, that I know you share that particular sentiment, but I want to give you the chance to sound off on that one too before we wrap things up.
Well, I think some of these companies are cheating because what VMM gives you that you don't get without it is that centralized hub to connect to all these things. So if they come out, well, we have a centralized things like, well, if you're piggybacking on VMM, you don't. They do. Microsoft built that for you, and you're just looking it up. I know, like the Citrix PBS thing I was talking about, they don't make a whole bunch of claims about it. Like, you can deploy to Hyper-V, no problem. You got to have a VMM for us to talk to. And that's it.
Yeah.
So I can't really blame people for taking advantage of it sitting there as long as they're not acting like they did all the work, because they didn't. So,
Right.
and I do, unlike you, I do have a platform where I am dealing with thousands of VMs. And honestly, if I build enough guardrails around VMM, I still don't like it, and there's still a whole lot of stuff I have to do to keep it from losing its mind. But as long as I put the guardrails on it, like I don't let it control my networking, there's a whole lot of things I refuse to allow it to do. You can usually get those tools functional enough, right, that the pain is not, it's tolerable. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So I don't like tolerable though. I don't like.
No, it's not a great place to be.
No,
it's really not. So I agree with you. If it's a viable path to just not use those tools and go find somebody who's, willing to talk directly to the Hyper-V API, which is perfectly capable, because remember your abstraction episode. So when they use VMM, they're putting in 2 layers of abstraction sort of a thing. And well, maybe don't do that, because if one of those 2 layers changes, you broke your whole program. If you just talk to Hyper-V, you're taking your risk down at the expense of you. If you're going to centralize, you got to do it yourself. But
I got it to load. Okay. Yeah. So I was mostly right. Yes. So this was on our Hyper-V in 2026 episode that we did, episode 43. And the commenter said, I'm not a huge SCVMM fan, but it's definitely required for some disaster recovery solutions. He calls out Veeam Recovery Orchestrator and Zerto. Both require SCVMM to manage the Hyper-V clusters. So yes. Again, if I would go out of my way to not use Veeam Recovery Orchestrator and Zerto, because I'd rather not deal with VMM. But if I had if I had VMM in place for some VMM reason, right? If there's something inside of VMM I wanted to use, then yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with it. But again, typically I'm not a fan of VMM. I'd rather do other things myself. So
if you handle my own backup solution than use VMM, that's where I'm at.
Right. If you're curious about those reasons why, Eric and I did an episode on the management story behind Hyper-V. I'll put that in the show notes. Go check that out. We talk about that ad nauseum in that episode, if I remember correctly. So anyway. Well, Eric, we've gone on for 1 hour and 20 minutes on this particular topic. A broad AI topic like this, I should have known, but hopefully you all stuck with us, and hope you enjoyed your time in this episode. Eric, I want to thank you for spending some time, as always. Good to have you, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
For sure. And those of you watching, like I said, hope you enjoyed your time here today. And, if you're, again, interested in all the various links associated with the show, you can go out to www.sysadminweekly.com. Again, if you want to reach out to us, you can always email us at contact@sysadminweekly.com. Don't forget to check out our newsletter as well at newsletter.sysadminweekly.com. With that, we'll let you get back to your day. Hope you stay safe out there, and we'll see you again next week for a future episode of SysAdmin Weekly. Have a good one.